At exactly 0412, 19 nautical miles southwest of Bandar Abbas, 6 hardened launch positions along the Iranian coastline came to life simultaneously. Crews had been at their stations since midnight. Targeting coordinates had been locked for 2 hours. What they were about to do had been rehearsed on paper dozens of times in training exercises the Revolutionary Guard called Operation Holy Shield. The missiles were already warm. The countdown was already running. And the men pressing those buttons had no idea they were being watched by sensors they had no instruments capable of detecting. Their target was the USS Abraham Lincoln, 100,000 tons of nuclear-powered aircraft carrier. $13 billion in floating American deterrence, operating in waters Iran considers its strategic inheritance. 5,000 sailors asleep, standing watch, eating breakfast, living their Tuesday. From the hardened command bunker overlooking the Strait of Hormuz, the Revolutionary Guard commanders saw a provocation. They saw an opportunity. They saw a weapon worth humiliating. They had been watching it come for days. What they failed to understand was that the watching went both ways. American intelligence assets had flagged the missile battery preparations 48 hours before a single warhead was armed. Thermal imaging satellites cataloged the heat plumes from fueling operations before Iranian ground crews clocked in for their shift. Signals intelligence captured the encrypted preparation orders within minutes of transmission. A network of sensors stretching from low Earth orbit to the floor of the Persian Gulf had been quietly assembling a complete picture of this morning's attack plan, while Iranian commanders congratulated themselves on operational security. The Lincoln's Combat Information Center had the intercept timeline calculated before the Iranian targeting radars even illuminated. Now it's worth understanding what Iran actually launched that morning, because the Noor anti-ship cruise missile tells a story that predates every sailor aboard that carrier. Iran acquired 60 Chinese C-802 missiles in the mid-1990s before American diplomatic pressure killed the export contract. The hardware was gone, but the blueprints stayed. Iranian engineers spent the following decade building their own version, stripping the design apart, understanding it, extending it. The result was the Noor. The name means light in Farsi. The irony is that the missile flies in the dark, literally sea-skimming at 5 to 7 meters above the water surface, using terrain masking and low radar cross-section to slip beneath defensive coverage. On paper, it's a legitimate anti-ship weapon. Range extended to 130 kilometers over the original Chinese design. A 165-kilogram semi-armor-piercing warhead built to rupture destroyer hulls. Subsonic cruise speed at roughly 0.9 Mach, guided to its target by an active monopulse radar seeker in the terminal phase. Here's the problem. That radar seeker was cutting-edge technology when the Soviet Union still held territory. Monopulse homing systems can distinguish between open water and a large metallic hull. What they cannot do is pick a carrier out of the electronic warfare environment projected by an American strike group. A saturating wall of jamming, deception, and false returns generated by systems that have been refined specifically to blind exactly this kind of seeker head. Sending that guidance system into that environment is like asking someone to thread a needle during a strobe light show, blindfolded, while someone screams the wrong instructions in their ear. The TF-10 turbojet powering the Noor is an Iranian-manufactured copy of a French engine design from the 1970s. When it functions, it's consistent. When it doesn't, the missile becomes a very expensive piece of ballistic furniture falling into the ocean. In contrast, the SM-2 Block 3A missiles waiting in the USS Porter's vertical launch cells reach Mach 3.5 on dual-thrust solid-fuel rockets. Semi-active radar homing with inertial mid-course guidance updated every millisecond by the ship's SPY-1D phased array. Engagement range stretching to 90 nautical miles. The technological comparison isn't measured in capability improvements. It's measured in entire generations of warfare philosophy. 0412. 6 launch flashes registered simultaneously on American space-based infrared sensors. Detection occurred approximately 3 seconds after ignition, before the missiles had traveled their first kilometer. The data was already propagating through the fleet's data network before the Noor's turbojet engines completed their startup sequence. The USS Porter, an Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyer sailing 20 nautical miles ahead of the carrier on the strike group's threat axis, had its AN/SPY-1D phased array painting the Iranian coast before the launches happened. The thermal signatures registered instantly. 6 tracks, bearing 270. Speed building through 500 knots. Flight profile consistent with sea-skimming anti-ship attack. Time to potential engagement range, 88 seconds. Inside the porter's Combat Direction Center, the Tactical Action Officer didn't deliberate. Deliberation is for situations where the answer is unclear. This answer had been clear since the threat classification completed 4 seconds ago. Weapons free, engage all tracks. SM-2 Dual Rail. The forward vertical launch system cells opened, and the pre-dawn darkness above the Persian Gulf turned briefly white. 4 SM-2 Block 3. A missiles left their cells in rapid succession, climbing on pillars of white-hot exhaust before pitching over and going level, chasing the inbound tracks at closing speeds that made the Nor's 540 knots look like a leisurely Sunday drive. 2 missiles per target for the closest 4 inbound threats. Redundancy isn't inefficiency in the intercept business. Its doctrine, written in the blood of the times, single-shot kill probability proved insufficient. The first intercept occurred at 47 nautical miles from the Lincoln. The SM-2's proximity fuse detonated within 20 feet of the Nor's airframe. Tungsten fragmentation traveling at 6,000 feet per second converted the missile's control surfaces, turbojet intake, and radar seeker into shrapnel. The warhead, still intact, plunged into the Persian Gulf without detonating. Flight time from Iranian launch to intercept, 41 seconds. The second Nor died 11 seconds later. Same geometry, same result. An orange fireball scattered burning JP-4 fuel across 200 meters of ocean surface, and the second missile ceased to exist as a threat. The remaining 4 died in sequence over the following 40 seconds. Precise, methodical. The Aegis combat system running on the Porter was never confused, never degraded, never uncertain. Each intercept solution had been calculated before the missile it was designed to kill had crossed the horizon. The entire engagement from first launch detection to final intercept consumed 93 seconds. 6 Iranian missiles, 6 intercepts, 0 leakers. The USS Abraham Lincoln never altered course, never increased speed, never activated its own close-in defensive systems. The RIM-116 rolling airframe missile launchers on the carrier's sponsons stayed in standby. The Phalanx CIWS systems never spun their 20mm barrels. The carrier treated the incoming attack the way a chess grandmaster treats a gambit from a player who learned the game last month, with the practiced calm of someone who saw the entire line of play before the first piece moved. Most of the Lincoln's crew learned they had been under attack when the general quarters alarm sounded after the missiles were already debris on the ocean floor. 0442. The Lincoln's response wasn't a reaction, it was a consequence. 4 FA-18E Super Hornets from VFA-25 catapulted off the carrier's deck via electromagnetic launch systems into the pre-dawn sky. Combat loadout: 2 AGM-88E Advanced Anti-Radiation Guided Missiles per aircraft for the primary strike mission, 2 M120D AMRAAMs for self-protection, 2 M9X Sidewinders on the outer rails. The strike package climbed to 20,000 feet, went supersonic at Mach 1.4, and turned northwest toward the Iranian coastline. Flight time to weapons release point: 8 minutes. Simultaneously, the Porter and USS Gridley prepared their own contribution: 6 BGM-109 Tomahawk land attack cruise missiles, GPS, guided with terrain contour matching, targeting data already locked. 3 assigned to the coastal battery launch positions. 3 assigned to the fire control radar installations that had provided targeting support for the Nor launches. The AGM-88E is a weapon worth understanding because it changes the math of radar operation permanently. The AGM-88E doesn't just home on active radar emissions, it remembers where the radar was. Iranian radar crews have standing doctrine for exactly this situation. The moment American aircraft appear on your scopes, you shut down and move. It's been standard procedure since the Gulf War demonstrated what happens to air defense operators who don't follow that rule. The Iranian fire control radar operators executed their evacuation when the Super Hornets appeared at the edge of their detection range. Screens went dark, power cut, personnel running for hardened shelter. The AGM-88E's inertial navigation didn't care. It guided itself to the last confirmed coordinates, reacquired residual emissions in the terminal phase, and impacted at Mach 2. The 148-pound warhead detonated inside the radar facility. Antenna arrays collapsed. Control vans produced secondary explosions as power systems failed catastrophically. The complex that had provided targeting data for the Nor launches ceased to function as military infrastructure and became an archaeological feature. One technician received shrapnel wounds. He had hesitated 30 seconds too long leaving the building. The restraint of American targeting geometry is worth noting. The strike wasn't designed to produce casualties. It was designed to produce craters where capability used to be. 0451. The Tomahawks arrived. 6 cruise missiles approached their targets at 550 miles per hour, terrain following at 100 feet altitude, GPS guidance accurate to within meters. The coastal battery positions were empty. The Nor missiles had already been expended. The launchers were cold. The crews dispersed. None of that protected the revetments, the reload infrastructure, the command and control bunkers, or the communications relay equipment that made those batteries operational. Each Tomahawk carried a 1,000-pound warhead. Each one transformed reinforced concrete and military hardware into rubble and fire in a radius measured in hundreds of meters. The backup radar sites received the same treatment. The entire retaliatory strike was complete before sunrise. The Lincoln's aircraft returned aboard. Traps complete, aircraft respotted for the next cycle. The carrier resumed its patrol route. Same course, same speed. As if the morning had involved nothing more unusual than flight operations and breakfast service. The accounting settled into brutal arithmetic. Iran spent $7.2 million producing and launching 6 Nor missiles. In exchange, they received the complete destruction of the coastal battery infrastructure that launched them, the elimination of the radar network that supported the launch, and an intelligence harvest that confirmed every assumption American naval planners had made about the Nor's terminal guidance vulnerability in a degraded electronic warfare environment. They revealed their launch doctrine. They demonstrated their radar activation procedures. They confirmed their battery positions. They handed American engineers 6 real-world data points on Nor flight profiles for the price of 0 additional collection effort. The United States expended 4 SM-2 Block IIIA missiles at $2.4 million, 6 Tomahawk land attack missiles at $10.8 million, 4 AGM-88E missiles at $3.6 million. Total direct expenditure, approximately $16.8 million to eliminate a coastal threat sector entirely, recover full intelligence on adversary systems performance, and send a message written in the only language that doesn't require translation. 0 American casualties, 0 American aircraft lost, 0 course deviations by the carrier being targeted. The strategic objective Iran announced through its Revolutionary Guard was force projection, demonstrating that Iranian coastal defense could hold American naval power at risk in waters adjacent to Iranian territory. What they actually demonstrated was a data set confirming their most capable anti-ship missile couldn't reach a carrier's defensive perimeter intact. Beijing's naval planners noted this. Moscow's analysts updated their assessments. Every navy in the world that operates similar sea-skimming subsonic cruise missiles had a reason to spend the following month in quiet review of their own procurement decisions. Within 72 hours, Iranian state media released footage framed as evidence of American retreat. The Lincoln's navigation log recorded 0 course deviations from the moment the missiles launched to the moment the last Tomahawk impacted. A perfectly straight line, maintained throughout an attack on it, its defense, and its measured retaliation, treated with the bureaucratic consistency of a routine patrol. The Persian Gulf returned to its customary tension. No further launches, the Lincoln passed through the Strait of Hormuz on schedule and conducted flight operations that afternoon. The crew ate dinner at normal hours. The cycle of watches turned. Somewhere in a hardened bunker on the Iranian coast, someone was writing an after-action report that no one outside that country would ever read. And that would almost certainly fail to draw the obvious conclusion. Some lessons arrived through diplomacy, some through economic isolation. This one arrived at Mach 3.5, and it left behind nothing where a coastal defense network used to be. The math was always simple. The outcome was settled before the first Iranian crew reported for duty that morning. The only question was how expensive the demonstration would need to be before the lesson was considered complete.